All right. Well, now we can actually get started. We're getting everything intro, so that's good. All I want to do is to start everything off. I'm gonna just have you say who you are, what your film is, and then give me a little bit of information about what your film is about, without revealing anything you don't want to reveal to the audience.
No problem. Okay, well, I'm James Atkins. I'm a filmmaker from the south coast of England in a place called Hampshire. My film is called The Witch Hunters Are Coming, and it's essentially a mockumentary. It's a parody of films, of TV shows like Cops. It's kind of a little bit like The Office, in that it follows a couple of witch hunters, these two behind me now, and it's a day in their life that initially seems quite mundane, and they do an investigation of a potential witch in London, and it has references to pop culture and references to lots of witch things like Snow White, the Blair Witch. She's called Agatha Blair, so it's kind of a hint that she's a witch. And who else? And a big reference to the Wizard of Oz. And what I found surprising in all of this is that in America, Wizard of Oz is part of your culture. You know that this character here, she's going around with a bucket of water for a reason. But it seems like a lot of people around the rest of the world have no idea. So they watch my film and they're like, why is this character from Dorothy from Kansas going around with a bucket of water? And I have no idea what the consequences are of water with wicked witches. So yeah, it's done very well over in America, the film. Not so well in other territories. Although my lead actor Marcus was a character in a Italian commercial series. So he's quite a familiar face to Italian audiences. So it's done remarkably well in Italy. So it's done its best in America. Because it's local to London, it's done quite well in the UK. It's done really well in Italy. So I have to learn Italian now.
That's very interesting, because that was immediately when I watched the film and I saw the Dorothy character with the pail of water, I thought that was freaking brilliant. I have never seen anyone else take that ideal and use it in any film about witches, and because I think that's probably only native to the Wizard of Oz is the bucket of water. But it was so prevalent to me because I grew up watching Wizard of Oz. I was like, dude, that was hilarious. I was jumping out, just laughing out loud at that whole aspect. That's so funny that other people aren't getting that. I never.
Yeah, they're not getting it. There's references they don't get. We also had, and I cut it completely out of the film, and I apologize to the person who played the part. But because it was super low budget, my assistant camera was also my makeup artist, and also she's the witch at the opening credits. But because we weren't going to see her face, there was a reference to the Blair Witch, and I had her standing in the corner the entire way through the shooting process. Because at the end of the Blair Witch project, you find out that the Blair Witch, part of her like killing of people, she has people stand in the corner. So I just had this poor member of my crew stood in the corner for loads of shots, and then I realized it didn't work. It was just kind of edging into the side of frame, so I trimmed her out. And it's like, oh wow, that's brutal. So, yeah, I mean, that's the trouble with not properly storyboarding it. Just playing with it during the day, because we don't. Yeah, that doesn't work. But yeah, these things happen.
I haven't storyboarded the film since I was in college, so I get that. Now maybe this is influence or not, and it could just be because I am a huge fan of this show. But did What We Do in the Shadows inspire you, or have any influence on this whatsoever?
Love the show. I love the movie. Director is amazing. All his films are fantastic. Love the new show. And yes, so there is an element of that kind of thing, but on a massively lower budget. Yeah. So But yes, absolutely. It is kind of that. Although what we do in the shadows follows the villains, kind of. I mean, they're antagonists. Whereas ours is all about following the heroes.
Yeah, what I got from that was the tone, the tone between that film and series and your series just resonated with me. But you're absolutely right. That follows villains and yours follows the heroes. So it's a different aspect. But me, and I just watched the entire show with my wife a month ago. So when I saw your film, that's the thing that clicked in my head the first. And so I was like, my God, I have to screen this movie, dude. This movie, and everything else. I was like, all my friends love that show, and I'm sure there's tons of people who love it. And the idea that you took that aesthetic and applied it to your story, but told a completely different story was brilliant. I mean, anyone watching your film will catch the whole cops aspect, reality TV versus witch hunters, and then the fact that your tone and your comedic timing is like that from what we do in the shadows will automatically get your film. And I'm hoping a lot of people see it and they react the same way.
Yeah, and my film was, it turns on the ridiculous at one point when we get onto Kevin Prince's character. I won't spoil it, but when he has his bits, shooting it was hilarious, I have to say. When I said, please, can you kind of do it like this? And the worst directing craft, of course, is do it like this, and then you do it for them. But I was like, do it like this, and then he did it, and he just absolutely killed it. And it was so funny. But you got to get through half of the film to see what happens to the poor old Kevin Prince. Or is he poor old Kevin Prince? Did he actually have it coming? This is it. I didn't want to make it black and white, which is necessarily bad in my film. There's one person reviewed the film and got really deep into it, and it's like it goes into like CCTV and intrusions on people's privacy, and should people be judge and jury by basically cameras in the sky, and they went really deep into like hidden messages that weren't necessarily there. I just needed a shot to show the witch meeting Kevin Prince. It's like, well, that makes sense, and it kind of mixes it up aesthetically. So yeah, but they went really deep into it, and it's like, yeah, I could see what they were doing. I wasn't going to disagree with them. They give us a prize. It's like, yay, totally, totally. Yeah, 100%. I had all these really deep ideas behind the script. It wasn't just a silly thing about a couple of witch hunters and a bucket of water.
So, what was the what was the thing that made you want to do a story about witch hunters? That's not something people. I mean, I haven't seen many films based on witch hunters. That was a very interesting and novel idea to try and pin your story around.
Yeah, I mean, any that there are tend to be quite gothic and like from the Dark Ages, or from during the times of like Salem witch hunters and that kind of stuff. Nothing contemporary. So I don't know. I was probably just watching a show like Cops. We got plenty of them in the UK. Loads of them like bailiffs and things like that. And I got a kind of twisted imagination in some way. Just thought, what would be interesting as a film about this? And it's like, well, that would be kind of interesting. You could have a very interesting antagonist, and you can have interesting characters of like witch hunters dragged into the 21st century. And what if they worked for the local council? So yeah, I don't know where it initially came from, but there must have been some kind of light went off during an episode of that kind of thing.
Well, that's very unique, because in the last decade, I guess we've seen a lot of films like Underworld where it's vampires who are after other people, or people after zombies, or witches we don't see very often. So that was a very a novel ideal, and very, I guess, current ideal to try and put your ideal of a modern day witches, because they look and pretty much do everything normal people do until they're forced into the situation to do something extraordinary. I thought that was a great aspect to the story there.
Yeah, and what witch films and so on, or shows we get at the moment? I guess there was Charmed like 20 years ago, or Sabrina. They tend to be extreme. They like put the witches, and it's like they're either really white witches and they're like the best ever, or they're just these haggard old wart covered creatures. And it's like there wasn't really witches where there was kind of shades of grey. It's like, okay, there's people out there that have got these special powers, and they could do nice things, or they could do really unpleasant things if you wind them up the wrong way. So yeah, so it wasn't intentionally like epic in scale, or anything like that. Not for budget or anything, as you can always find a way. But no, it was just kind of what would be the impact of if there was these people out there still from whenever to the present day, and would we be in any way tolerant of what they do? And the answer in my film is absolutely not.
It doesn't matter what type of witch you are. We have witch hunters who go after you.
They're coming for you. They're coming with their bucket of water.
So, what was the process of shooting the movie? How long did it take to shoot it versus editing it?
Shooting it was, I think it was 2 days. And we might have just done, I think I did a little pickup shoot just for the opening title sequence. I did that with my lead actor, but no, the vast majority of it was done in 2 days. Okay. As far as the shoot, editing it, way longer, as is always. I mean, they say that editing takes 6 times as long as it takes to shoot. Yeah. It took way longer than that. I had completed it, but I didn't have headphones. So in the same way that you were mentioning before this interview started that you had computer issues, I edited it on my brand new laptop, which I kind of bought for the edit. I didn't buy headphones. So I edited it together, thought, brilliant, sounds great. You'd put it anywhere and it sounded great on my computer. And then anyone with a pair of headphones went, it's mono, dude. All the sound is coming from one side. So I suddenly got a whole wave of festival rejections. And it's like, why? They're going technical problems with your film. And I'm like, really? Okay, I know that I deliberately made it look like there was a couple of camera crews following them. So it was never meant to look cinematic, if you know what I mean. It's meant to look kind of raw, like it was done there. So there'll be like bits where the camera's shaking and bits where the camera's got to look for the characters, that kind of stuff. But I never thought the sound was going to be that bad. Then I bought some headphones and I'm like, oh my. Oh my. And I've turned it all stereo. But by then, so many festivals, it was like, oh, I can't get back in then again because they've already rejected it. So yeah, so you guys have got the more polished version. It's not super polished anyway. It's not meant to be. If it looked 4K and everything was like lit brilliantly, it wouldn't be right, you know. Yeah. And I think some festivals really look for that. They're about production value, and if it doesn't have A+ production value, they're just not interested in it. So mine, as it deliberately didn't go for that, doesn't necessarily have the outreach. But I'm saying a lot again. The festivals that get it really do like enjoy it, and those that know the story of Wizard of Oz are in a better place as well. We also had a 13-minute version, and it has more kind of cutaways to the characters where they explain the lore of Snow White. There's a really nasty deleted scene about what happened in the reality of Snow White, but it didn't really move the film on. And I'm a firm believer that if you can get a 10-minute film, then it's going to be better than a 30-minute film if you're not losing anything. Yeah. So that's what I did. I trimmed it down to 9 minutes and 59 seconds to hit that no longer than 10 minutes festival requirement. And so I'm guilty of it myself. A lot of filmmakers are very precious about their footage, and they think everything they've written has to be in their film. And I think sometimes you have to take a step back and go, okay, that's all really nice stuff, but if my film is going from A to B and then B to C and then C to D, if I've got a scene that just kind of ingratiate scene B, and I don't actually move anything forward as a result of it, do I need it? And can I trim my film? So that's what I did, and I was quite brutal.
That's good. So this brings me to a question I probably should ask you beforehand. What are all the different positions you did on this film?
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
Like you write it, direct it, produced it,
So I wrote it. I then produced it. I then directed it. I then edited it, sound designed it. I've gone back to being the producer, getting it out there. I funded it myself. I did call in a lot of favors. I'm very fortunate. I've got a few people that are happy to collaborate with me to keep my budgets down, and so they bring equipment, or they bring their talent. Marcus has been in 2 or 3 of my films. My director of photography, who's actually going to be in your cinematography panel tomorrow, a guy called Abi Hamouda from Morocco, and he is fantastic. He brings all the kit. And normally a couple of people that he knows, and I've never have met them, but it's like, oh, these are the guys that you've got to be on this shoot. Are they Abi? Good stuff. I trust you. It's all good. And fortunately, I've got into a lot of festivals, and so I think that there are people that are willing to give me their time. I'm going to feed you. I'm going to pay your travel expenses. If you're Dorothy, you get to keep the costume. But I'm not going to be able to pay people a lot. I try and pay them something. But if it's only $50 or something like that, then hopefully I'm not out of pocket. And I know that a lot of people get upset if you put a post out there online on Facebook or something and saying, hey, anyone want to work, and then you put the dreaded 2 words of expenses only, you just get hate coming from people, and it's like, expenses isn't going to pay my rent, all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I totally get that.
Yeah.
Don't apply.
Yeah.
Don't apply. But there are people out there who, if they've got a day off, they've got some free time, they're not doing anything else, come along, join me on my shoot, you'll have some fun, and then you'll get into some festivals.
Yeah, normally I've done a lot of films that same way, where we usually shoot on the weekends because I can't pay everybody. Some films we have a small budget for, some films we have a really small budget. It's project by project basis, and once I've built up enough good actors who love my style and know what to expect, those people always tend to come back. And then, like you said with your cinematographer, they'll bring more people back, and then more people will see what we are up to, what we do. And that's we're indie filmmakers. That's what we do.
Absolutely. No, I 100% agree. And I still do have my dreams of my $3 million budget feature film. Script is written. Any producers out there want to read? Give me a call. It's because I think it's great. I would, wouldn't I? Because I wrote it. But
is it the same vein as this one?
It's similar. I tend to do comedy, and this is a comedy which is actually based on a short film, which is the first one I did after film school. I went to film school in New York City. I went to the New York Film Academy. And after I left film school, and I was horribly running out of money, I managed to put together a crew, and fortunately, one of the actors loved the script enough to fund it. He put $2,000 into it, so that made it. And it's basically flips between reality and fantasy of a game of Dungeons and Dragons. So you initially start the thing and you think, oh, this is a fantasy film. This is like set in the Dark Ages and magic and all this kind of stuff. And then there's a hard cut in the middle of a word, whereby we then had the shot in fantasy of this guy in a suit of armor going, well, is this a PG audience? Sorry, PG audience. He says balls because he misses. Okay, but the B and the A are in fantasy in that frame, and then we hard cut into reality, and the LLS is this guy rolling the dice. So he swings the hammer like that, but that's the same process as rolling the dice. So you have a cut on action and in a word, and you realize it's a whole bunch of people's imagination playing Dungeons and Dragons. This was a almost, I'd like to say Shakespearean, but it was a tragedy because it was about the introduction of a bunch of male gamers, and one of them brings their girlfriend, and unfortunately that girlfriend is the catalyst for disaster because A, she doesn't get it, doesn't understand the whole geek culture, all these people going playing a game, drinking beer, eating chips, and like using their imagination. And she helps the games master, and unfortunately, she just keeps rolling those 20s. And so this guy who's actually an actor, and he uses role-playing games as his opportunity to act. He plays his over-the-top like paladin, like this knight in shining armor, and she kills him. And so this is the person that had a character that he'd invested his like years of his life into, and this girlfriend comes along and kills him. And that's a spoiler if anyone watches the film The Gaunt Lord, but it's online now, so it's fine. It's 10 years old. But that film, that short film, is a 15-minute segment of my 90-page feature film, and that bit is like Act 2. So you establish all the characters, you establish this guy starting to date this new person, and then she comes in, destroys the group effectively because they all split up as a result of this guy getting killed, and she insists her boyfriend doesn't interact with these people because they get annoyed with her and all this kind of stuff. And it's what happens to this group. It dips into fantasy throughout. So I'm selling it here, but it's kind of Big Bang Theory meets Lord of the Rings and The Witcher and all this kind of stuff. So for marketing purposes, it's original. There is a films that were made out about 15 years ago called The Gamers, but that was like really tongue-in-cheek. It's on YouTube, but when you're researching, you've got to make sure you haven't just ripped someone else off, even if you didn't do it deliberately. I've written scripts and I thought completely original, had no idea about a film, and then years later I've watched the film and I've gone, oh my, that's what I did. So it turned out it wasn't. So I would suggest to everyone, just do a little bit of research before you think you got an original idea. You might find out you're ripping. You're not deliberately, but you find out you've ripped someone off. Yeah, but so there is a film that does have a group of gamers, and it does go reality and fantasy, but mine is far more into the characters and their interaction with each other, and spends 2/3 of the time outside of fantasy. The dipping into fantasy is really to kind of give the audience an injection of like excitement and action, but also some comedy. Whereas the film in reality, whilst there is stuff going on, don't get me wrong, it's kind of like the vibe of like a Superbad or that kind of thing. There's that kind of feel, but it does both. So yeah, that's my feature film that I've tried to sell to you for the last quarter of an hour.
so I like to mix this the whole aspects of kind of like a little reality with the fantasy elements. That's kind of cool. Have you done that with any other project other than that one, your feature version of that, and Witch Hunters? Or is this just something that just happened to just pop up with these projects?
I kind of do. I always try and take a genre and then play with it. I did a 48-hour challenge, for instance, and it was about a girl going on a date, and then it then flipped into a zombie film because her date gets eaten by a zombie, and then the zombie comes to the door, knocks on the door, and then we had to cleverly do the camera angle so you never had the reveal. It turns out we were watching a family of zombies, and the date wasn't the person getting eaten, the date was the zombie. So in that regard, I try and flip on people's expectations and what they kind of see, because you see a lot of films that are very, I hate to say it, generic, because there are excellent ones even now. Don't get me wrong. You see in in the UK, knife crime. Everyone loves a knife crime film now, and the effects on people that are in a gang and trying to get them out of the gang, and somebody gets stabbed. It's normally your brother. Um, so you see it a lot, and when it's done originally and they do a new twist on it, then fantastic. But when it's just that same story, the flavor of the month a few years ago was people coming out as LGBT. And whilst it's a very important message, and I'm totally on the side of LGBT rights and everything like that, but you'd see one film and then you've seen them all. Some of them, it's like, oh, this person's struggling to come out. They come out to their family. The family rejects them. The family finally accepts them. It happens all the time in films. And it's when you have an interesting take on that, or you maybe flip it around somehow, then I think that's what interests me as a filmmaker. But and of course, with creative things, this is just my opinion. Other people, they can watch that same film done a different way hundreds of times and never be bored by it, and that's absolutely fine as well. I'm not going to tell people what they should or shouldn't like, but I know what I like.
Yours is like, I like that aspect now I think about it, and you're telling me these stories. I like the aspect of taking these genres and you give them a little twist, but it's also a little comedic twist.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. I've tried doing just horror. I did a film called Puppy Dog Tales, which was meant to be just horror. It was proper creepy. Like, I've sat in an audience, it's kind of blowing my own trumpet here, but if people have had a couple of drinks and they watch this film Puppy Dog Tales in the dark, probably on their own, then it's proper creepy. But then right at the end, bam, it's funny. Just the very last line of the film, suddenly the whole thing gets turned on its head, and your antagonist, you suddenly slightly empathize for her. I'm going to say her. I said that's spoilers. So yeah, I find myself always falling into, even when I try and do horror, it's comedy. Or if I try and do drama, it ends up being silly and it's funny. But I don't mind that. I like comedy.
I've tried my last short film. I tried to do a straight drama / romantic film. I don't know if it's successful because I've never done one. Thankfully, it's not a feature, it's a short, because I'm experimenting, because most of what I've done is straight horror or lots of fan films, or, and so I'm trying to branch out, so. But interesting, very interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, I've done the same, and yeah, I don't like the film. I haven't put it out. It's like, you know what? I did it as an experiment. Could I do it? Yes, I can do it. Do I like the film? No.
I wish I could say I don't put my films out there if I don't like them. I like, whatever, it's done. Do whatever it will. And some of my film, some of the films, they connect with people when there's something familiar with them. Like you said, the American audiences connect with this one because they see the tropes from Wizard of Oz, whereas other people don't pick it up because they're not familiar with it. And I think that's one of the things that will make or break a film, is if they can either empathize with your characters or they can get the situation you're trying to sell them. I mean, you're essentially trying to sell them, hey, modern day witches exist. Now there's an agency who goes out there and kills witches.
Yeah.
But the way you approached it was original and very, very entertaining, to say the least.
Thank you.
I think my wife were both watching it at the same time, because when I watch some of these films, I don't know what the heck I'm watching. I don't read what the films are about. I watch every film that's submitted, every film. And I don't read what they're about because I want the film to tell me what they're about. I think we were both rolling the entire film, because like I said, we had just watched What We Do in the Shadows. I think that if we had not just watched that, she may not have gotten it as much as she did. But having those ideals in your head, that
reference,
that and the fact that we both have seen Wizard of Oz too, that's what we've grown up with, everyone in America has, are the things that we grabbed onto and made the film like 100 times more entertaining than it probably could not have been without those tropes in it. So
yeah. The girlfriend of Marcus, I screened it to her of him, and she was like, "What's with the bucket?" And I'm like, "The film don't make any sense to you. You don't know why there's a bucket of water." So yeah, and again, I think the reason why I cut that bit of Blair Witch out was you have to really remember the film, The Blair Witch Project, to remember that somebody stood in the corner for it to work. I still might have liked to have kept it in, because it's a little nudge and a wink to the horror community that do remember it and have seen the film a number of times.
Do you see yourself making another film like this soon, or another project, or are you going to work on something completely different than this one until your feature gets made, of course?
I'm actually halfway through a film. It is a Christmas comedy monster feature. Not feature, sorry, monster film, not a feature. And it's called The Promised Goblin. And it takes a character and then brings it into the 21st century and changes it on its head. Basically, it's about Santa and his naughty and nice list. But what if the Krampus works for Santa and he works on the naughty list? And my guy is called the Promised Goblin, and he's a descendant of the Krampus, essentially. And he finds out that it's set on the 27th of December. He finds the naughty list in the bin, and he finds out that Santa delivered to naughty and nice kids, because Santa believes in goodwill to all men, okay, whether they be good or bad. The Krampus doesn't. He believes in crime, punishment, and actions have to have consequences. So my film is a mix of Frost Nixon, where you've got a debate between the Krampus and a heavily hungover Santa Claus, because Santa Claus has traveled the world. He's drunk millions and millions of bottles of beer, eating all those cookies. So he's not in a good state. So you've got the Krampus confronting a hungover Santa Claus, and then they have a little bit of a moral debate about, should bad kids get presents at Christmas? And then, this is a little bit of a spoiler, folks, because Santa's so worse for wear, he has to go and deal with his stomach upset. So the Krampus steals the reindeer and goes about. I'm not going to say what he does to the kids, because that's too much of a spoiler, but he steals the reindeer to deal with what he sees as an injustice and bad kids getting away with it. Now, my Krampus isn't necessarily that evil, and it's shades of grey. He's not that bad he's not just a demon. He's a demon who lives in the 21st century, and he knows that some things are right, most things are wrong in his opinion. But he then contrasts with Santa Claus, and Santa Claus is like, no, just give everyone presents. And of course, there has to be some kind of meeting in the middle for most folks. Most folks would be like, yeah, I kind of see where Santa's coming from. You don't not give presents to a kid if all they did was say they wouldn't have a cookie and then they eat a cookie. That's taking it a bit far. That's kind of where the Krampus is, though. He's on the lines of, a kid broke a promise. They're not getting a present. Santa gives them a present. But at the same time, you get a kid who's a bully and beats up someone. Did they get a present from Santa Claus? Probably not. So it's it's that shades of grey, and we put these two arguments. So and at the end, the audience, I'm not telling the audience what's right and wrong. The audience can make up their own mind.
Nice.
And they can go, oh, okay, I agree with what the Krampus is now doing, or now the Krampus is going too far, or I agree with Santa, or no, Santa needs to be less of a goody two-shoes, thankfully, giving everyone. So that's what I'm doing. And COVID got in the way. I was 2 days in. I'd done the heist. Yeah, this guy, we'd done all the Krampus prosthetic. He was in his costumes. We'd done the heist. We've done a couple of flashbacks that were necessary for when the Krampus is confronting Santa Claus and saying, yeah, but what about this kid and what about that kid? And we had flashbacks. We've done the flashbacks for them. We've done the heist, and we haven't done 70% of the film, which is the debate between Santa and the Krampus. And halfway through, and my actor's losing weight. So we've got a continuity problem. I'm a script supervisor. That's what used to pay the bills. I'd go onto feature films and I would be a continuity guy. And it's a hell of a continuity thing to say, yeah, he's 3 stone lighter in one scene, and then the next scene he's lost a load of weight. So I've had to say to my actor, yeah, you go on a diet, but you've got only so much that I can allow, because I basically am forcing him to stay out of shape, which is a bit harsh. But I've shot half my film, and he looks a certain way. He's not allowed to get fit. He's got to remain unfit for my film.
Well, let's hope that you see the rest of it soon.
Yeah, we've even scored the bit that I got. I haven't yet color corrected it, but I've scored it. Well, I didn't score it. A fantastic composer called Michael has scored it. But yeah, and it's so frustrating because it's there. It's within my grasp to finish this film. I'd found some people that I worked with on a feature film, and they'd agreed for me to do a set build, and which is unheard of for me. But because I work for a bank at the moment, because I can actually have some income that way, I can afford to have a little set build to build the office for Santa. So it was going to be like in the middle of July. We were going to have the fake plastic trees up and all the wrapping paper and so on, and make it look like it's the 27th of December. But it might be the 27th of December 2022 before, and then I don't necessarily need to get so much production design if they're not shooting it halfway through the year. So
that being said, do you have any final words about your film for the people who will be watching this?
Yeah, well, first of all, I hope you enjoy it. It's only 9 minutes and 59 seconds of your time. If you like something silly, if you like witches, if you like reality TV shows taking the piss out of, apologies for my language, then this is the film for you. And I should also add, this is not Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, because that is totally somebody else's copyright. This is just somebody called Dorothy who happens to go around with a bucket and dress like her. Not the same character. She was from the 1940s, for goodness sake. So it can't be, can it? So it's not her. Whoever was the production company, Universal or whoever it was, not her. Let's just be sure about that. And Disney, not the same Snow White, but it is. Anyway, so if you like a lot of pop references, you like something silly, and you like witches getting wet, then this is the film for you.
Well, thank you, James, for doing this filmmaker interview with us, and I do hope that you get a chance to watch all the other films, or at least a good sampling of them, and come to some of the other panel discussions and watch some of those.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. It has.
Take care and keep safe, everyone.